Okay, welcome everybody to the SAGE Research Methods Workshop. My name is Amanda Bezet and I am one of the reference librarians here at the NCU Library. We are going to be following along very closely with our workshop outline tonight. So if you don't have your workshop outline in front of you, that's certainly okay. I'd like to first take a moment to show you where you can locate those workshop outlines. So if we go to the Research Help drop-down menu and click on Learn the Library, this is going to bring you to our Learn the Library guide. So on the left-hand side of the screen, you can go to the Library Workshop Videos link. It will drop down, and then you can look at the workshop outlines as well as the transcripts. For the actual recorded sessions, you simply click on the Library Workshop Videos link itself, and then all of the workshop recordings are there. But again, you can go to the outlines and the transcripts as well. All right, so I'm just going to return to the library's homepage. Again, this is the SAGE Research Methods Workshop. This workshop will introduce you to the latest version of SAGE Research Methods, the library's reference collection on research methodology. It will provide you with techniques to become more effective at discovering content within this database. A lot of the examples I will use today pertain to the School of Education, but all of the techniques will apply to any of the schools here at NCU. So we do have a number of learning objectives that were located in that workshop outline. Upon completion of this workshop, you'll know how to access and navigate the SAGE Research Methods database, discover content by searching and by browsing, use the methods map to discover content, access reading lists of key research methods and statistics resources, access the SAGE Research Methods help resources, and finally access the new project planner, which is a new feature that SAGE Research Methods has added recently. So I'm going to start by going to the new A to Z databases list. You can also access A to Z databases under Research Resources. So all we need to do at this point is go to the A to Z databases page, and then we can navigate alphabetically. We can search for the database, or we can just browse through. I'm going to click on the S to get to the SAGE Research Methods database. So you'll see we do have a number of additional SAGE databases, but we are, of course, going to click on this one. So first of all, what is SAGE Research Methods? SAGE Research Methods is a multimedia database containing more than 1,000 books, reference works, journal articles, and instructional videos covering every step of the research process. Now, I do want to make it clear that the NCU Library subscribes to all books and reference content as well as the videos, but we do not provide access to cases or the data sets. Now, in your workshop outline, there will also be a link if you wanted to access a full list of the titles provided in SAGE Research Methods. So here we are on the home page. We do have a number of ways that we can access our content. As you see, obviously there's a search box front and center. You can also come down to the I want to section, which is a good way to start browsing through content. You can browse by discipline. You can go to the methods map, and we will explore all of these resources. There's also 2 brief instructional videos. These must be new. I actually haven't seen these before, so I recommend that you check these out. This one seems like it's an overview, and then this one talks specifically about conducting a literature review. If you scroll down to the bottom, this is where you'll see the cases and the data sets to which we do not subscribe. I'm going to scroll back up to the top because there was a lot going on that home page, but I sort of want to concentrate on these 2 menus at the top of the screen. So here we can browse by, of course, topic, discipline, or by content type. So let's go ahead and start doing that at this point. let's start with the topic browse, and let's say we are just starting on planning our research. So let's go ahead and click Planning Research. And let's say we're also starting to think about our literature review. So once that next screen loads, we'll be able to make another selection. Okay, this is bumping us into the methods map itself. So we selected that we wanted to do planning research, and now at this stage we can make another selection. So let's say that we are interested in, oh, this is very strange. It's saying there's 0 content here. This browse feature does not seem to be working right now. So it looks like I might have to submit a work order for that. We'll skip that. I'm going to try to browse by discipline. I'm hoping it does not go in the same direction. So let's say we are an education student and we want to browse by the education-specific resources that are available here in Sage Research Methods. Finally, we have some success here, because what it will do first and foremost is give you a little overview of educational research methods. So it gives you a little background, and then it also recommends a particular introductory text. So this one is called Introduction to Educational Research, a Critical Thinking Approach. And if you were to click on that, I'm going to open in a new tab, but you could just click on it and you would go directly into that particular resource. So it's good news that our browse by discipline feature is working. We also have the ability to browse by content type. So if, for example, you did just want to look at the videos, or you just wanted to look at the reference content, you could go ahead and click on that and access all of the reference books versus the other types of resources that are available. Now, once you are on this screen, you're able to choose additional resources as well, or change your content type. So I'm going to close out of that. Actually, we'll just go back to a home page here. So now let's start talking about the methods map. We tried to go into method map via the topic, which would jump you into a particular section of the methods map. But what we can do is simply go to Research Tools and then go to the methods map. So it explains very briefly what it is. Explore the research methods terrain, read definitions of key terminology, and discover content relevant to your research methods journey. So basically, this is a tool for you to understand how method concepts relate to one another. So let's go ahead and go into it. The map has an entry for every method concept in Sage Research Methods. It shows a definition of that term and provides a link to the content on that subject. So now that we're here, we're at the broadest tier of research methods. But we could start choosing what area we're looking at. So I think before I wanted to try to go into planning research, remember at the beginning, and here it shows that there's 30 resources available for planning research. Now it looks like we can view all of the content on planning research, or change our mind if we wanted to look at research questions instead. So the broader terms will appear on the left-hand side, the narrower terms on the right-hand side. But let's just go into our content on planning research. And then we'll talk a little bit about this actual results screen as well. So like I said, it gives you a brief definition of the term. So here it tells us that planning research is constructing a description of the nature of the proposed research, its significance, and how it will be conducted. And then here are our results. So these results look like they're all coming from the project planner. Oh, here we go. Here are some of our additional types of resources. Here's some books. There's a book, project planner, video, video, handbook, video. So now we're seeing the different types. We'll talk about that research planner, but it looks like our initial hits were just from that research planner. So basically, this is just a way, an alternate way of getting to content, and it's a good starting point if you're at a particular stage in your research and you want to sort of get to those particular resources for that planning stage or for whatever stage you are in that research process. So let's talk a little bit more about the results screen. Results are ranked according to relevancy, but you can always change that right here. You can change from the relevancy to sorting by title or the original publication date. So if I wanted to see the more recent publications first, here's a video from this year, we could pop that content up to the top of the screen. Each result, as we saw when we were scrolling through, displays the type of resource that it is. So whether it's coming from the project planner, a video, a book, a reference resource, or an article. There are a few journal articles in here, but not very many. We also have a way to search within our results. On the right-hand side of the screen, we have a way to modify the search if we wanted to go back and change what we are searching for. Right now we were searching for planning research within the methods itself, but maybe we just want to look for that in the full text of the document. So that would be a way to modify your search. Let me go back to the screen, and it looks like everything that we have in this particular results list seems to be stuff that we have access to, but if you ever see a closed lock icon, that means that we don't have access to that particular resource through the NCU library. So this would probably display only for those things that we don't subscribe to, which were the data sets and the cases. So if you happen to see results for cases or data sets, you might see that closed lock icon letting you know that you do not have access to that. Let's go ahead and conduct a search instead. And you're welcome at any point to do a search up in the basic search box at the top of the screen, or you of course can go to the advanced search screen. The advanced search screen will allow you to change the field that you want to search in, as well as put on some limiters or specify, what type of resource you're looking for. I'm just going to do a quick search here for online surveys, and I'm actually going to put this in quotation marks so it will search for that as an exact phrase with no other words in between. Phrase searching is covered in our Searching 101 and continued in our Searching 102 workshops. So if this is something you're not familiar with, we definitely highly recommend Searching 101 and Searching 102. So I'm going to search for online surveys in the full text, and I'm just going to press search. So we do have over 3,400 results, which is okay because we can always narrow this down if we need to or search within our results. We do have a brief definition of what online surveys are, and of course we can click to see more information within that methods map. So here we see our results list. What are online surveys, internet surveys, telephone surveys, a lot coming from encyclopedias, handbooks, etc. If we wanted to modify what type of resource we're seeing, we could do so on the right-hand side of the screen. So let me actually expand this books area so we can see some particular types of resources that are available here. So what I want to point out are the little books, the Sage little books. You'll see little green books here and the little blue books as well. The little green books are Sage's famous series called Quantitative Applications in the Social Sciences. So these volumes cover quantitative topics such as meta-analysis, survey questions, Q methodology, experimental design and analysis, regression models, etc. Versus the blue books, which are the qualitative research methods series. These are designed to teach researchers about specific modes of social inquiry, as well as widening the range of social science methods for any researcher. So little green is quantitative, little blue is qualitative. So if you knew that you specifically wanted quantitative results, you could uncheck this book limiter. Actually, we could have just unclicked these. Let's just choose the little green books in that case. So we did not exclude our other types of resources, which we could do if we only wanted to see those little green books. So now that we see those, we're looking at internet data collection, factorial survey experiments, etc. If we see something that we're interested in, we can certainly click on it in order to get into that full text content. So here we will see the chapters which are hyperlinked, which you can click on to get into that content. So you'll see all of that there. A lot of times you'll see additional reading or references at the end. And what you can do is you can download the PDF. If you wanted to save that content as a PDF, you have the ability to do so. So there is our section or chapter that we selected. You also have a cite button in the upper right, so you can get that APA citation to that particular resource. You can also export it to RefWorks. So if I were to choose RefWorks right here, it would prompt me, if you are a RefWorks user, it would prompt you to actually save the file, and then you can go into RefWorks and upload that file. So if you're interested in using something like RefWorks, we do recommend the Introduction to the New RefWorks workshop. It will go over how to get content into your RefWorks account. You have the ability to add this resource to a list, and we'll talk about creating personal accounts and using lists in just a moment. You could also just share the resource via email or social media. And finally, you have the ability to make the font a little bit bigger. Okay, so now that we've seen how to browse, how to conduct a search as well, let's talk about reading lists, because we've talked about the methods map, and I definitely want to cover these other tools that are available within Sage Research Methods, starting with a reading list. Reading lists are lists of content created by users of Sage Research Methods. A user who has set up a profile has the ability to create reading lists and add content to them. So if I were to come down here, I would be able to browse all of the reading lists or browse by discipline. So if I wanted, let's say, reading lists in the area of education, I could click on that, and then we will see all of the reading lists that have been created. And it looks like over 1,000 at this point, so quite a number of reading lists that people have created. Now, you may want to create a reading list just for yourself. You may want to create a reading list for your instructor. If you are an instructor yourself, you might want to create a reading list for your students. But this is just a way to look at other people's created lists. You can also If you find a list that you're interested in, like this one, a few suggestions for starting your research. So this one has 7 results in it, starting with the literature review, choosing among methods, the writing up process. So it looks like there's some good references here. If you wanted to save them, you could actually add to my list. So you could create your own profile. So let's do that now. Let's log in. If you do not have an account, you'll simply click Create Profile. But since I have my own profile, I'm just going to go ahead and log in. And now I'm going to click Add to my lists again, and it says that it has been added to my list. Okay. So now let's take a look at where those lists actually are. So I'm going to go up to my name in the upper right-hand corner, and you'll see my reading lists available here. So you can go to your profile here, you can go to your reading lists, and you can also save searches and see any saved searches that you may have. So I have 4 reading lists, one on surveys, one on the library workshop, resources I wanted to use for the library workshop, qualitative data analysis, and our new one that we just added, a few suggestions for starting your research. If I go to my searches, you'll see that I have saved 3 particular searches that I could run at any point in time. If I wanted to create this online survey search again, I could click Run. Action Research, I could click Run, and that will execute that search again. Okay, so the way that you can save searches is by clicking on this Save button. Okay, but I'm not going to do that since I already have this one saved. But that will only appear, well no, that should appear, but it will prompt you to log in if you're not already logged in. So that covers your personalization, your My Profile. I also want to continue on with the research tools. So I want to next go to the Project Planner. The Project Planner is a new resource, and it's a tool designed to guide you through your research project, starting with an overview and why we conduct research, and going all the way through writing up the research and disseminating that research. Now, please keep in mind that this project planner provides general guidance. So this does not provide any policies or any requirements specific to North Central University. Okay, this would just be universal guidance on somebody planning a research project. But if we go through some of the sections like defining a topic, I think you'll find that it's extremely helpful. If you're at this stage, it pretty much defines what stage you're at. You can click Show Publication Information to see where this information is coming from. And then you can come down here to specific sections. How can I decide what to study? How do I identify a good research topic? This is a question that we get a lot. So this is an excellent area to review. What practical things should I think about? And here's an actual checklist to ask yourself when deciding on a topic. So this project planner can be extremely, extremely helpful. So I do recommend going through all of the different stages and then returning to each one as needed. You can also download PDF, things like the checklist. You know, that might be something that you want to download and save. So we do have one more area under the research tools, which is called the Which Stats Test. This is an area that allows you to answer some questions which will help identify a statistical test to answer your research question. So this is not going to identify test instruments like specific surveys or specific instruments or scales that you may want to use to measure something, this will only identify a statistical test. So if that's something that you need, you can certainly go through this area to learn more about that. You can also read about choosing test statistics. So if you haven't noticed already, at each stage of the process, it will provide a link for additional information if you need to find additional information or read about additional information. Now, since I mentioned tests and measurements, if you're at that stage of your dissertation where you need to choose a survey, an instrument, a scale, I definitely recommend returning to the library, going to the Learn the Library area, and we have a workshop that's called Introduction to Tests and Measurements. So this workshop is going to go through the library's databases as well as online resources to help you identify a test instrument relative to your particular topic. Additionally, if we go back and go to the research process, the research process also has under resources for dissertation research a tests and measurements page. So this is also going to talk to you about effectively finding, and there's our workshop, by the way, which you can link right out to, effectively conducting research to identify a particular test instrument. Okay, so that pretty much covers the content in SAGE Research Methods. I apologize that this topic browse feature wasn't working. Like I said, I'll need to submit a work order on that. But if there's any questions, please don't hesitate to put those into the chat. Additionally, located in your workshop outline, there are some additional resources that could be very helpful. If you're a faculty member, there are the faculty resources, which is helpful for using SAGE Research Methods content in your courses. We also have a SAGE Research Methods help page, which can help with the general searching. There's also a SAGE Research Methods LibGuide. So this is a more extensive guide, and you can see that there's different tabs along the top. So let's say you are in the School of Business, but you're interested in criminology. This will identify some particular resources within SAGE Research Methods that could be helpful to you. The same with these other disciplines. Finally, they offer something called Method Space. This is a network for students, professors, and other researchers engaged in research methods. So you can see resources, and these resources will include things both within SAGE Research Methods and outside of SAGE Research Methods. Events that are coming up, they'll post webinars that are related to research methods, groups, recent posts, etc. And this is something that if you wanted to look into it, you could click sign up in the upper right-hand corner. All right, well, that concludes our workshop. What I can do is unmute everybody in case you have some additional questions to ask. If you don't have any additional questions, definitely feel free to take off for the day. I'm so happy that you were able to join me, and I definitely hope to see you in future workshops.